The paradox of progress, the complex reality of South Korea. South Korea shines on the world stage. It boasts technological prowess and cultural influence. K-pop, K-dramas, and innovative technology have captured global attention. However, behind this dazzling facade, a somber truth hides. South Korea is often labeled the saddest country in the world. This title reflects a struggle with social pressures and mental well-being. South Korea's journey from a war-torn nation to a global power is remarkable. This rapid development came at a cost. The relentless pursuit of economic progress puts immense pressure on its citizens. The pressure to succeed permeates every aspect of life. This essay investigates the factors contributing to this widespread sadness. It examines the demanding education system and the intense work culture. In a few decades, it has become a global power. A place that dominates technology, is a benchmark in education, exports its pop culture to the entire world, and also shines in sports. Yes, South Korea is all that and much more. But at the same time, this very advanced country carries a very somber title. It is one of the places with the highest rates of suicide, anxiety, and depression in the entire world. How can such an incredible country, full of achievements and innovations, also be one of the saddest in the world? What's behind these problems in Korea? Well, that's what we're going to explore here. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our posts. Without further ado, let's go. To understand why South Korea is experiencing this mental health crisis, we need to take a look at its history, which is, to say the least, tough. I'm not exaggerating. Korea suffered a Japanese occupation that lasted 35 years and was extremely brutal. During this period, the country's culture, identity, and even independence were deeply affected. Korea was forced to adopt a series of policies imposed by Japan, which sought to totally dominate Korean resources and society. This was not just a political and economic occupation, but also a cultural trauma that marked several generations. After this period, the country would still face another huge challenge, the Korean War, which divided the nation in two and took the lives of more than 3 million people. Imagine having to rebuild a country from ruins, with the constant threat of a new conflict looming in the air. At any moment, another war could break out. At any moment, everything could be destroyed again. In this context, South Korea had no choice but to develop rapidly or succumb. And that's how the so-called Korean economic miracle came about, which transformed the country into a global power in a few decades. This miracle occurred right after these traumatic historical moments. The Korean economic miracle, or miracle on the Han River as it is also known, was a period of rapid economic growth that took place between the 1960s and 1990s. This period transformed Korea from a war-torn nation into an industrial and technological powerhouse. At that time, the country was under the leadership of authoritarian governments, like that of President Park Chung-hee. Even so, the government adopted an approach of accelerated industrialization, investing heavily in sectors such as technology and infrastructure. Large companies such as Samsung, Hyundai, and LG, which today dominate global markets, were born precisely in this period of accelerated growth. And all this growth did not happen by chance. The Korean people, in general, are hardworking, disciplined, and highly educated. If I could give one more reason for this, I would include the government's economic policies, which combined loans with other countries and structural reforms that aim to boost the economy. However, all this growth came at a price, and the Korean economic miracle is ingrained in the country's culture to this day. The pressure to be the best, to stand out, to not fail, comes from a historical need for survival. The fear of being weak, of failing, goes back to that time of struggle for survival, where any mistake could mean the extinction of the country. This pressure is reflected in many aspects of Korean society, but perhaps in the most obvious of them, the education system. The education fever and the pressure to perform. In South Korea, education is paramount, seen as the key to success. From a young age, children face immense pressure to excel academically. Competition is fierce, with long hours in preparatory academies, the hagwons. Students study late into the night for college entrance exams. These exams, the sunyong, dictate future career prospects. The pressure to succeed leads to stress, anxiety, and sleep deprivation. This intense pressure affects the mental health of students. Many experience burnout and depression. The academic emphasis overshadows other important aspects of life. Now we are beginning to understand a little better why Korea has one of the highest suicide rates among young people. When success is the only option, failure seems unbearable. The weight of being perfect, of not failing, is so great that many young people see no way out. The pressure to be the best at everything is immense, and if you don't manage to be the best, you end up being seen as a failure. This is particularly strong in the area of electronic sports or esports, where competition is fierce and the demand for perfection is total. In the 90s, a video game changed everything, and that game was StarCraft. It became a fever in South Korea, but it wasn't just a hobby. It was a real sport. Packed stadiums, match broadcasts on television 24 hours a day, professional players treated like celebrities. Nothing like it had ever been seen before, and Korea was leading this revolution. But why StarCraft precisely? And why South Korea? Well, part of the answer lies in the country's history. At the time, there was a cultural ban on Japanese products such as Nintendo or PlayStation video games. So while we in the West grew up playing Super Mario, Koreans were discovering computers. The Korean government subsidized the internet, which caused PC bangs, which were internet cafes, to spread throughout the country. And it was in this environment that StarCraft exploded. The game was complex, strategic, and super competitive, and Koreans embraced it with an intensity no one expected. They brought the mentality of hard work, discipline, and obsession with being the best to the world of video games. Professional players lived in shared houses, training 12 to 14 hours a day. It was a high-pressure environment where only the best survived. And this formula for success wasn't limited to esports. It spread to other areas such as K-pop and even large companies like Samsung. In K-pop, for example, trainees, young people who dream of becoming idols, spend years in intensive training regimes. They practice dancing, singing, and even etiquette for hours, all for the chance to make their dream of becoming a Korean pop star come true. Even after they become famous, the pressure continues. They always have to be perfect, always impeccable. It seems that to be successful in South Korea, you need total, almost inhuman dedication. And what is the psychological impact of living in this environment? We have already seen how the pressure for perfection affects students and athletes, but the impact does not end there. In the case of esports and K-pop, the fear of failure is enormous. The competition is constant, and the feeling that you are never good enough is always present. When you combine this with the intense work culture, the result is gigantic exhaustion. Many young Koreans live exhausted, anxious, and with the feeling that no matter how hard they try, they will never achieve the success that society expects of them. The question that remains is this mentality of dominating at all costs sustainable? Is it taking too high a toll on people's mental health? Returning to the economic miracle, it is undeniable that South Korea did something extraordinary. In a few decades, the country went from a devastating war to becoming one of the largest economies in the world. They built modern cities, global companies like Samsung, Hyundai, and became leaders in technology and innovation. But as we have already seen, every miracle has a cost. And in Korea's case, one of the biggest costs was the economic inequality that came with all this growth. With increasing wealth and economic success, deep disparities have emerged between different social classes. The country became increasingly competitive and at the same time increasingly unequal. The economic elite became richer and richer, while many workers who support the country with their hard work did not see significant improvements in their living conditions. This generated a feeling of frustration and despair for many people who dedicated themselves to the maximum and did not see the fruits of their labor. This feeling of inequality added to immense social pressure, creating a perfect breeding ground for the mental health crisis that Korea faces today. The pressure to succeed doesn't end with education. South Korea's work culture is notorious for its long hours, demanding bosses, and intense competition. Employees are expected to put work above all else, often sacrificing personal time, relationships, and well-being. The Bali culture, which translates to hurry, permeates the workplace, emphasizing speed and efficiency above all else. This relentless pace can lead to burnout, stress-related illnesses, and a decline in overall well-being. Additionally, the hierarchical structure of many Korean companies can create a stifling work environment. Young employees often feel pressured to meet the demands of their superiors regardless of the impact on their personal lives. The relentless pressure to succeed in South Korea has taken its toll on the nation's mental health. The country has alarming rates of stress, anxiety, depression, and suicide. These statistics reflect a deeper social struggle to cope with the demands of modern life. The stigma surrounding mental health issues prevents many people from seeking help. Traditional Confucian values, which emphasize stoicism and self-reliance, often discourage open conversations about mental health. The lack of accessible mental health services further exacerbates the problem. Long waiting times for appointments and a shortage of qualified mental health professionals make it difficult for people to receive timely and effective treatment. Today, South Korea is a country of extremes, a nation where contrasts are so great that they become almost palpable. On the one hand, you find futuristic skyscrapers, luxury stores, and an upper class that lives quite comfortably, with access to the highest technologies, first-class education, and a lifestyle that many would envy. But, on the other hand, there is a very different reality. The constant struggle of a young generation that is trying to survive, that faces an increasingly competitive job market, and for many, the dream of owning their own home seems like an increasingly distant goal. This reflects the growing economic inequality that has gripped the country. An inequality so great that many young Koreans feel cheated. They grew up hearing that if they studied hard and worked hard, they would have a comfortable life, a promising future. But the reality presented to them is quite different. Access to financial stability, what many call success, seems to be almost a distant dream for the youngest. For many people in Korea, achieving this level of financial stability has become a goal that seems increasingly unattainable. This growing gap between the expectations of youth and the harsh reality of the job market is creating a generation that feels frustrated and discouraged. The sacrifice for financial success, something that previously seemed to be a valid and natural effort, is now seen by many as a journey without end, where no matter how hard you try, you never seem to achieve the much-desired success. The problem is that, in South Korea, financial success is considered the key to happiness, and this puts enormous pressure on everyone. People work non-stop, sacrificing their own needs, their time, and often even their mental health, all to achieve this ideal of material success. What happens when, after years of effort, you realize that no matter how hard you try, you will never be able to reach that standard? Frustration and anxiety take hold of you. People don't have time for themselves, to reflect on what really matters in life. The relentless pursuit of high financial status is becoming an obsession, while mental well-being is put aside. This focus on financial success has become so ingrained in Korean society that mental health is often sacrificed in the name of work. Social inequality and the pressure to succeed increase psychological tensions, creating a scenario in which emotional problems are relegated to the background and not adequately addressed. The education system and the work environment in Korea, with their extreme pressure, further reinforce this mentality, turning the country into a place where the pursuit of material perfection overrides caring for inner well-being. South Korea's work culture is known to be one of the most intense in the world. The hierarchy is rigid, the working hours are long, and the competition is fierce. Even when the work is done without the need for overtime, the pressure to stay in the office until the boss leaves is immense. This results in strenuous workdays, with people leaving late at night or even staying in the office over the weekend. In this culture, the idea of leaving work early, for example, is unthinkable, as the general perception is that you are showing a lack of dedication and commitment. The result of this is tremendous physical and emotional wear and tear. People don't have time to rest, to take care of themselves, or to cultivate relationships outside of the corporate environment. Loneliness becomes a constant, and this leads to an increase in the number of cases of depression and anxiety, which in turn fuels a vicious cycle. Addressing South Korea's mental health crisis requires a multifaceted approach. Reforming the education system to ease the pressure on students is crucial. Removing the stigma of mental health issues and promoting open conversations about mental well-being is equally important. Increasing access to affordable and low-cost mental health services is essential. By addressing the social pressures and cultural norms that contribute to this crisis, South Korea can pave the way for a brighter future for future generations. Although anxiety and depression are growing at an alarming rate, Korean society has great difficulty dealing with these problems. This lack of understanding, this inability to accept that mental health needs care as much as physical health, only makes the situation worse. People then isolate themselves, hide their difficulties, and the problem gets deeper and deeper. Psychologists, celebrities, and even politicians are beginning to speak openly about mental health, challenging the taboos surrounding the issue. They claim that anxiety and depression are not character flaws, but illnesses that need to be treated. This, in a way, is a breakthrough for the country, as it breaks the cycle of silence and shame. The inner emptiness, which is caused by the lack of emotional balance, cannot be filled with material goods or physical appearance. The great contradiction of Korean society is that despite being one of the richest countries in the world, in material terms, Korea suffers from great emotional poverty. This is a people that faced devastating wars, foreign occupations, and several economic crises, and yet managed to rebuild and prosper. However, today the challenge facing the country is no longer rebuilding cities or winning wars, but rebuilding itself as a society. The country, which has already proven capable of reinventing itself on several occasions, may now be able to find a way to solve the problems that afflict its population and, who knows, teach us something about how to seek a healthier balance between the material and the emotional. If you liked today's video, please support us by liking and subscribing to the channel. Your support is what keeps us going. Don't forget to check out the video you have on the screen right now. I'm sure you'll find it fascinating. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.